get to Tim Walz, who, just when you think no one's sitting at this table, neither she nor the big white blanket, can embarrass themselves any further, he does. She asks him, to her credit, about the carrying the weapons in war, which we know is a lie. He never served in war. He's been stealing valor for quite some time.
And one that I will point out that I think is really important, really came at the very end of the debate, that I wish the moderators, had they been fair and neutral, that they would have focused on, because it is a very serious issue that we're facing, which is censorship under Kamala Harris that we've seen over the last 4 years. We have hard evidence that this has been taking place. And you have Tim Walz himself, who has said that free speech and the First Amendment is a privilege and that it does not apply to misinformation and disinformation.
Tim Walz just discovered that when Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard want to cut you to pieces, they bring a wood chipper rather than scissors. Walz, who somehow manages to be the most boring and annoying politician, is the perfect chew toy for their roast. His entire political persona disintegrates thanks to sharp humor and piercing observations, making him seem like a high school substitute teacher who accidentally walked into a governor's office.
The media has zero interest in not one, not two, not three, but 4 vets who actually served with Tim Walz coming forward to say he's a coward and he abandoned them at their greatest moment of need. Zero coverage from New York Times and CNN and Washington Post. But this scuffle over whether Trump inappropriately took pictures at a place Joe Biden's already taken pictures and released them as campaign efforts, that's dominated the news media now for 8.
In their own news conferences, politicians like Tim Walz often lose themselves. He has the unique ability to speak for 45 minutes without saying anything memorable. Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard don't even need to go further to mock him. All they need to do is hold up a mirror. He is a living example of Midwestern indifference. But instead of coming across as polite, he seems arrogant with a hint of ignorance.
You said you carried weapons in war, but you've never deployed in a war zone. A campaign official of yours said you misspoke. Did you? Well, I'm proud, incredibly proud of my record. He keeps doing this. Equally proud of my service in the classroom. Did I mention I was a teacher and a coach, an assistant coach? Okay, whatever. But he's more stolen valor. In the classroom, I'm in the classroom. My record speaks for itself. It doesn't, actually. You've put a lot of lies into that record that you've been called out on by service personnel. You must clarify.
Both he and President Trump are listening to the American people. You contrast that with what we hear from Kamala Harris, what we heard from Tim Walz, who had a really, really tough job tonight trying to defend Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's disastrous policies. But what we've heard from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden over the last 4 years is how great Biden.
The roast first cuts through the core of his supposed leadership. Walz enjoys presenting himself as the sensible father figure of a small town, but the moment someone asks a difficult question, the facade collapses. He stumbles, he waffles, he acts as though something important is being concealed, but his answers are so painfully uninspired, they could have been pulled straight from an inspirational billboard. Megyn Kelly quickly points out that his remarks sound less like political strategy and more like a passive-aggressive PTA meeting no one wants to attend.
Who's vetted Tim Walz hard back in 2018 when he was trying to elevate from congressman to governor, and he did it successfully. And here's the headline: former National Guardsman, Tim Walz is misleading the public about his time in service. I'm going to read you some excerpts. Walz often refers to his military service as he campaigns for governor. However, former members of the Minnesota National Guard are raising concerns over the discrepancies in his story, saying he's misleading the public.
In a room full of people rooting for him, he might still seem like the least significant individual. The roast turns into a critique of how someone so dreadfully ordinary could have stumbled into politics and then convinced himself he was destined for greatness.
We saw Tim Walz, who I think he's done virtually one interview, a puff piece with CNN, and Kamala Harris by his side. And I think he had a tough job, again, of trying to defend Kamala Harris's record and did not meet the mark of even trying to make their case to the American people in a very compelling and clear way.
What truly makes him an easy target is his desperate attempt to look tough when he is actually paper thin. The art of chest-puffing politics is something Walz has perfected. When the stakes are high, his grand declarations about vision, leadership, and accountability are always followed by retreat or inaction. He speaks like a general leading an army, but behaves more like a nervous crossing guard waving cars by. Megyn Kelly skewers this perfectly, pointing out that his greatest accomplishment might be his uncanny ability to look overwhelmed by everything, whether it's a budget, a conversation, or even an overcrowded salad bar.
And then here's, I mean, two pieces of this that are really, I speak like they do. People are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves. And I speak especially passionately about, and then he goes on to blame it on the school shootings. I guess he was upset about school shootings.
Tulsi adds to the damage by exposing his poor judgment. Under pressure, Walz never performs well. He crumbles under pressure, offering excuses and cliches instead of strategy. Kelly and Gabbard expose how his career runs on smoke, mirrors, and empty talk. Walz calls himself a man of the people, yet flips positions like a bad DJ, assuming his supporters are goldfish who won't notice.
One of the moments that stood out to me that Tim Walz was talking about how now is a time where we need Kamala Harris's steady hand of leadership, and especially with what we're seeing happening in the Middle East today, he threw out a lot of words that tried to distract away from Kamala Harris's record. Her and Joe Biden's policy on Iran was one word: don't.
This roast takes particular joy in skewering his obsession with popularity. Acceptance isn't enough for Walz. He craves it like oxygen. Every speech, every press conference, every photo op screams, "Look at me!" The surreal quality of it all is undeniable. Like a regional theater actor who over-rehearsed but still missed half his lines, his awkward Midwestern persona feels contrived. Kelly calls him out with a fake smile, reminding everyone that sincerity can't be faked with constant shucks and charm. Tulsi attacks from another angle. Walz isn't just weak and dishonest. He ties himself in knots explaining why nothing is ever his fault. By the time he's finished, no one remembers the question, but everyone remembers he didn't answer it.
He's just utterly incompetent. Look how he handled his own National Guard during the.
Well, he said there was a reason for that. There's a reason he didn't deploy them, and we'll show you that soundbite too. He's got strong thoughts about how the National Guard should be deployed, and I guess he didn't think they were appropriate to go out the first couple of nights. We'll say soundbite 5. He didn't think that they were appropriate to go out the first couple of nights of Minneapolis burning post George Floyd.
The mayor knew what he was asking for. He wanted the National Guard, and what does that mean? I think to the mayor, yes, I think it's a perception. I'm certainly not questioning that. I think the mayor said, I request the National Guard. Whew, I'm out. This is great. We're going to have massively trained troops. No, you're going to have 19-year-olds who are cooks.
The roast then hits Walz's inflated ego. He sees himself as a national heavyweight, but Kelly mocks him as middle management at a car rental company, while Tulsi reminds him real leadership is about decisions, not slogans. Instead of inspiring, Walz drains energy from the room and overcompensates with cringy, man-of-the-people acts, like a dad misusing TikTok slang.
But I do want to talk about Tim Walz because, my God, my very first story at Fox News, very young cub reporter, was Swift Boat Veterans for Truth, coming after John Kerry and his misrepresentations about his military service. Tim Walz has a Swift boat problem of his own. If you look back at Alpha News, and this is a great news organization, we had them on when they did the documentary about the trial of Derek Chauvin and the smear job by so many against him. I'm not defending, the tape. I'm just saying if you actually watch this documentary, you'll be horrified at what was done to Chauvin by the officials in charge in Minnesota.
Kelly cracks that every time Walz tries to sound cool, a teenager dies of secondhand embarrassment. Tulsi notes the real issue is his cluelessness. He thinks fake smiles and awkward laughs are genuine. From there, nothing is spared. His record, persona, and ego all get torched. Kelly calls him a pep rally politician with fake charm and empty promises, while Tulsi says he mistakes titles for power. Together, they don't just roast him, they burn him to ashes.
But stop saying you speak like we do. I speak like regular people. What kind of bullshit is that? No, you don't, sir. We don't lie about military service we didn't actually perform, like going to war. We don't steal valor by saying that we had a higher rank in the National Guard than we did. We don't run around saying we served in Operating Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan when we didn't. We don't stand and watch somebody say that we were in combat in Iraq when we weren't.
The final joke is fitting yet brutal. Walz wants to be seen as a leader, but Kelly makes him look like a fool. The best part? He doesn't even realize it. He'll keep giving long-winded speeches, flashing awkward smiles, and thinking he's winning people over while the rest of the world laughs at him. His attempt to project indifference to criticism only makes things worse. He tries to seem calm and unbothered, but the cracks are always visible. The moment pressure rises, his fake composure shatters, his face hardens, his tone shifts, and the nice guy act gives way to irritation. Walz doesn't answer questions. He recycles bullet points like a kid giving a book report on a book he never read. Every response is filler, vague catchphrases padded with long pauses to feign thoughtfulness.
Fallout continues for Tim Walz on the disastrous performance he delivered, in particular when it comes to his self-described knuckle-headed behavior, which was just his latest in a series of lies. The reason he resorted to, I'm a knucklehead, was he got confronted with his latest lie that's been unearthed. There's a long list of them. This one was that he was in China when the Tiananmen Square disaster unfolded, when hundreds of people were killed. You know whether you were in a place where hundreds of people are being massacred by their government when it happens. But he continues to try to say, like, oh, gee, I was just kind of confused. You know, that happened in May and I was there in August, but I guess I just imagined that I was there, whatever.
Kelly tears into this pattern, saying his remarks sound less like leadership and more like a poorly produced motivational podcast that runs out of material halfway through. She adds that Walz's answers leave people more confused than before. The roast digs deeper into his delusions of popularity. Walz convinces himself people admire him, when in reality, most tolerate him. Tulsi goes further, arguing that Walz mistakes passive submission for admiration, inflating his sense of importance. They also dissect his chronic indecisiveness. Walz loves to brag about teamwork, but in practice, teamwork under him means delays, indecision, and paralysis, not leadership.
Take a listen to this answer.
You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in schools and around.
According to Kelly, Walz is the kind of leader who would take 6 months to decide on a pizza order, by which time the party has already ended. Tulsi delivers, the final blow. Leaders who can't make decisions aren't real leaders at all. By the end, the roast becomes a public reckoning. Walz's facade crumbles, and the more he fakes control, the smaller he looks. Kelly and Gabbard strip away his borrowed charisma and hollow rhetoric, leaving only mediocrity. His legacy isn't leadership. It's being the governor so thoroughly clowned that even his fake smile couldn't survive.